the Campbell's Company. We would love for you to share your favorite Campbell's product and or soup in the chat. And hopefully folks have had lunch before this, so you're not getting too hungry, or it's good fodder for what to have for lunch after. But please take a few moments to do that as we're all getting settled in. So I think we have a good group from the waiting room. So I'm going to go ahead and kick us off, but please continue those introductions in the chat, and excited to have you all here. So my name is Kyle Pennisi. I'm a managing consultant at the Taproot Foundation. I'm joining you from my home in Durham, North Carolina. And in the spirit of participating in the icebreaker myself, I would say my favorite Campbell's product is those honey mustard pretzel bites. I think they're from Snyder's, but that's part of Campbell's, if I'm correct. So a big fan of those. But we're not here just to talk about Campbell's products. We're also here to talk about skills-based volunteering and how our partnership and work with Campbell's was a great catalyst in deepening local impact and strengthening corporate community partnerships. A few housekeeping notes before we dive in. This session is being recorded, and the recording, a PDF of the slide deck, and a few accompanying resources will be shared out with participants and registrants following this event. We'll have time for question and answer towards the end of the session. Questions can be submitted using the chat function, and my colleague Kristen is monitoring the chat. So again, as we're settling in, please feel free to drop questions as they come up and continue to introduce yourself in the chat. So here's an agenda of our time together today. We'll start with introductions and context setting. We'll then transition into understanding the Campbell's Camden connection and how engaging in skills-based volunteering with the Taproot Foundation further deepen that connection. We'll then close with next steps and question and answer. And here are your lovely presenters for today. You'll hear perspectives from Campbell's leadership and Taproot. Campbell's has been an anchor in Camden for quite a while, and their partnership with Taproot is a great example of skills-based volunteering in action. I'm proud to partner alongside Kate Barrett, president of the Campbell's Foundation and director of community affairs at the Campbell's Company, and Andrea Patton, senior manager of employee and community engagement at the Campbell's Company. And that's me on the right. Again, I'm a managing consultant with the Taproot Foundation, and I had the pleasure of working with the Campbell's Company on their 2025 skills-based volunteering programming. Later in the presentation, I'll be sharing lessons from designing and implementing this program. So a bit about Taproot. Here at Taproot, we empower mission-driven organizations by mobilizing skilled volunteers to advance resource equity. In short, we help nonprofits access expertise that they otherwise couldn't afford. Our work isn't just about volunteering, it's really centered around capacity building for nonprofit partners. Taproot has spent 25 years connecting nonprofits with skilled professionals, and we've seen firsthand how skills-based volunteering transforms both communities and companies. Let's talk about why this matters and how we work. Excuse me. So, for 25 years, Taproot has been connecting nonprofits with pro bono expertise. During that time, we've delivered more than 300 million in services and support. We've helped over 25,000 nonprofits and have engaged over 100,000 skilled professionals. And we've partnered with more than 100 companies to make this happen. These numbers tell a story, but what really matters is what they represent. And that's thousands of missions strengthened and thousands of professionals who've discovered their new purpose in their work. And we're still evolving and still growing to further deepen this impact. When we think about Taproot's role in the pro bono or skills based volunteering ecosystem, we can think of it in four different realms. First, Taproot is an innovator. We design creative, high impact programs like Scopathons, which you'll be hearing about, to solve real nonprofit challenges. We're also a builder. We we support building a strong foundation for skills based volunteering by aligning employee expertise with social impact goals. Taproot is also an enabler. We provide tools and support like Taproot Plus to make pro bono accessible and scalable for volunteers and workforces. And we're a convener. We're all here together today, and we also embrace the thought leadership space and work to connect partners across sectors to share insights and to advance the field of social impact. So there are several ways that Taproot partners with companies and grant makers. We start by really identifying that pro bono sweet spot. Where can we align employee skills with organizational social impact goals? And a Taproot partnership might include a variety of things. It could include research and design work to best understand how a company can most effectively engage in skills based volunteers. It could include custom cohort programs to engage multiple employees and make an impact on many nonprofits. And that's what we'll really dig into during this webinar. We also have Taproot Plus for on demand volunteering. That's our pro bono market space. And Taproot also engages in thought leadership to further position a company as a CSR leader. And this approach, it's not one size fits all. It's tailored to organizational culture, goals, and community. Let's now dive into what this partnership looks like in practice with Campbell's. So Taproot and the Campbell's company launched their partnership in 2025 with several key goals in mind. We wanted to work together to strengthen the employee value proposition, create a real impact in the Camden community, grow leaders as advocates for community work, and build a scalable program. Taproot Foundation and the Campbell's company worked together to launch an in-person skills-based volunteering event, a Scopathon, at the Campbell's headquarters in Camden earlier this year. The Scopathon is a great example of Taproot innovation and experience in this work. This custom program helps nonprofits define a project scope while giving employees a chance to apply their expertise for real impact. So let's learn a little bit more about this impact in action and hear more about the Campbell's company work in Camden. So for that, I will pass it back over to Kate.
Great. Hi, everybody. So nice to be with you all. I'm Kate Barrett. I lead our community affairs team at the Campbell's company and serve as the president of the Campbell's Foundation. Thanks to all of you for sharing your favorite products. It's kind of fun and always impressed when people know the different products that we have. So I guess maybe that rebrand from the Campbell Soup Company to the Campbell's Company is working. We do have a lot of different food products that we make, and we are very proud to be headquartered in Camden, New Jersey. So I'm going to start just by sharing a little bit about what we do, the scope of my team's work at Campbell's, just to kind of set the context for this work that we do around skills-based volunteering, and then also talk a little bit about our kind of unique relationship and role in Camden City. So here you can kind of see that our team oversees all the work kind of for our function, ranging from grant making, so kind of direct philanthropic contributions in the community, to the employee side of the work, so employee giving and volunteerism. We also run several programs really focused on economic development and mobility. I'll share a little bit more about some of those in a few minutes. We also oversee disaster relief and in-kind giving, which as a food company, a lot of that is product donations. So just making sure that we're tracking all of the the products that we are donating into the community. The 3 funding focus areas up front are just that, funding focus areas. So we really try to lean into employee choice when it comes to our employee giving work and volunteerism. But when it comes to our funding, we do have a more focused approach. So increasing food access is a top focus for us, as well as encouraging healthy living through nutrition education and physical activity programs. And then we do a lot of work in our neighborhoods to kind of cultivate public spaces and community placemaking, really taking a place-based approach to all of our work, which is focused on about 32 communities in North America where we either have manufacturing facilities or offices. We have been headquartered in and around as a company in Camden for 156 years. So a really long time. And there has been, lots of different change in Camden throughout that time, but the company has been here through it all. And so especially now as more companies have also come to Camden, we continue to really play that kind of an anchor role in the community as, the big corporation that's here. And while we are just over the bridge from Philadelphia, Camden is a really small city and a city where unfortunately just doesn't have a lot of the resources of Philadelphia. So the corporate community is really important in terms of supporting a lot of the nonprofits in the area. And there are a lot of incredible nonprofits and a lot of great work happening in Camden. The company has helped organize things like a corporate impact group where we get all of our peers together who also work at the other Camden corporations, and we make sure we're kind of sharing and spreading our resources. And our CEO has played a really active role on the CEO Council in Camden as well. So again, just Camden for us, while we have communities across all of the country, Camden is really home and special to us. All right, so since I know we're going to spend most of the time talking about volunteering, I just wanted to share a little bit of some of the other programs that we're doing in Camden beyond the volunteering side of things. So I mentioned community or grant making in general. We do community grants to nonprofits focused on those 3 focus areas that I mentioned before. We also do, we don't do a lot of sponsorships as a company, but when we do, it's really focused on our long-term partners in Camden City. We have a signature program focused on school nutrition. So really honing in on the school environment around food access and nutrition education. And that program has expanded from Camden to Charlotte, North Carolina, where we also have a big presence, and Hanover, Pennsylvania. We do career exploration visits. So that has been bringing students into the campus as much as we can to kind of learn about the company and what we do, as well as actually this year formally launching a high school internship program with the company as well. And then finally, something I wanted to highlight was our local procurement work. There is a big initiative in the city called Buy Camden First to really support more local businesses in the city. And so we have kind of a new public goal around that to make sure that we are not just supporting the city philanthropically, but also supporting economically as well. So just some highlights from our work in Camden from this past year. So over $1 million in grants and funding. We supported 12,000 plus students and families through our Full Futures programming. We volunteered 10,000 hours in the community here in Camden, or at least by our Camden employees. We hosted over 250 students and young adults for career exploration visits. We do our days of service in the spring and had 40 projects this past year. 20 nonprofits have been supported through pro bono work. And I know that's going to be a lot of what we talk about later today. And then I mentioned the internships. So just starting with 4 interns this year, and hopefully something that will continue to grow. So I wanted to talk just a little bit about why skills-based volunteering and really why this has become a big focus for us. So I think this is a really nice illustrative quote from one of our employees who volunteered. But, I often kind of talk about like the win-win-win of skills-based volunteering. So when I think about it from a company perspective, right, we see through this quote and through many, many experiences and anecdotes from employees that this is really an opportunity for employees to to really tap into their own sense of purpose. And it really does drive engagement and job satisfaction. And there have been a lot of studies really showing the link ultimately to retention. So it's just a great way for companies to engage employees in really meaningful ways and to put those skills to practice. Again, I think that business case is really there for employees themselves. It's it's that connection to purpose for sure and satisfaction, but it's also a great way to advance skills. It can be a really great way to just practice and hone different skills that you're already working on and bring those benefits to the nonprofit community. And then, for nonprofits themselves, we often will hear, feedback from nonprofits saying, dollars, of course, are really important and always needed, but when you think about the resources and the skills and the expertise provided by employees with skills-based volunteering, these could be otherwise consulting services or a full-time staff member, things that are so expensive for a nonprofit organization to have. And so again, you just have that incredible impact for nonprofits as well. And so I think there's always going to be a role for traditional volunteering, for hands-on work. There are always going to be employees who want to get out and get their hands dirty, often literally. And we also have to think about the reality of employees, like, those for us that are in our manufacturing facilities who can't, take time off the line to do this kind of volunteering. But where we can, especially in our offices, this is just the type of volunteering that we want to continue to grow and promote. Because again, we just hear that feedback from kind of all sides now, just saying how meaningful this is and how impactful it is both for the employees, for the company, and for the community. So I think with that, I think I am passing it off to my colleague Andrea to talk a little bit about how this has all come to life.
Yeah. Thank you, Kate. Hi, everyone. I know towards the end someone said that they couldn't hear Kate, so I just want to make sure folks can hear me. Awesome. So happy to be with you all today. I work under Kate, and my title was on an earlier slide, but the more descriptive version is I oversee all of our company's employee volunteerism and giving programs, as well as disaster relief. What I love to say about our giving and volunteerism programs is I connect employees to make an impact in the communities where they work and live. And skills-based volunteering has been something that I've just been so lucky to get more and more resources behind over the past years as I joined the company just under 4 years ago. So there's a lot on the slide. I wanted to just highlight a little bit here that, as we've dabbled in various different types of skills-based volunteering, right? It's our Taproot partnership. We'll jump into Scope-a-thon in the next slide. We've also been looking at like cross-corporate pro bono projects where we are placing our employees on volunteer teams with employees from working professionals from other local corporations in Camden and nearby Philadelphia to support nonprofits with short-term 4-month projects. We've been working on upskilling of the nonprofit staff and small businesses in Camden, having our employees teach workshops virtually and in person at our headquarters. And then starting to also get really proactive about looking at how we can offer pro bono support for some of our legacy partners as they come up on some milestone events, whether that's like a major anniversary, maybe wrapping up a capital campaign and they have a ribbon cutting coming up. So thinking about how we can offer these things to our partners, making them aware that it is a resource. Kate touched upon a little bit that we have committed publicly around some goals. She was talking about a procurement goal, but I'm actually really excited that in the last year we launched a public goal around skills-based volunteering and being able to provide the equivalent of $1 million in skills-based volunteering support with a focus on pro bono. And we actually leverage Taproot and CECP's pro bono valuation and traditional volunteering valuations as the means for how we are measuring that. So we, as Kate had said, there's always going to be interest in that traditional get your hands dirty, roll up your sleeves. But we believe that we can make the biggest impact, especially in Camden, through leveraging the talents and skills of our employees to help move the needle, whether it be through nonprofits, it be with the next generation of working professionals and that career exploration. So I want to share a little bit about what we've learned as we've really been growing our skills-based strategy over the last, I would say, 3 years. First-timers who are unfamiliar with skills-based volunteering can be hesitant, but very quickly become fierce champions, especially of pro bono work. It is very easy for me to tap into a pool of it's hard to get folks to do it the first time. It's very easy to get them to do something a second or third time. I think education needs to be at the forefront of your internal communications plan. So this goes beyond just general volunteer recruitment. It's working with HR business partners to identify candidates and gain manager support. For us, something that we did that was really successful was identifying the ideal leadership level, like the target audience within our L&D team, that was looking for that experience with like strategy work, exposure to leadership and high level thinking. That was senior managers and associate directors, and we knew that the L&D department was really trying to target that group for more opportunities, and so we were able to come in and align with their needs to say, we have another option here for you. Educating employees is not the only thing, though. Educating the community around skills-based volunteering, especially pro bono work, requires its own strategy. We have been having presentations, breakfasts, one-on-one meetings with various nonprofit partners, just educating them on what it is, letting them know it's a resource they can tap into, right? If they're struggling with a certain area and they have relationships with certain organizations, whether they've received funding from them or not, asking if they can receive the support through pro bono work is sometimes can be actually more than a grant, right? In terms of cost savings. I would also recommend, though, really important to have an expert, whether that is someone on your team or a partner like Taproot, being a part of those conversations. What I often find is that organizations, they know they need help, they want the help, but they don't actually know what to ask for. And things like project scope creep are real. And so having those experts there to help them dissect, like, what's the actual problem? What's the actual need? What is a tangible and realistic support that we can offer you, ensures that you're setting up both the nonprofit and your colleagues up for success whenever you're providing some type of pro bono work. I talked about proactive pro bono offering for legacy partners. This is something that I think might be an easy way for you to dip your foot in with pro bono work. So maybe it's a legacy partner that you've been working with for years. Maybe it's part of your, like, an add-on to your grant strategy. Some examples for us to kind of help paint a picture. We're the lead donor at the Food Bank of South Jersey, their new capital campaign. They were doing a ribbon cutting event for their new health and nutrition center. And they had sent over some graphics that they just wanted our approval on for using our logo. And it left a lot to be desired in terms of the design. And so our digital strategy and creative team actually sat down with them, offered to design all the assets for them, ended up having this incredible, super professional, high touch from a design perspective event. And they have offered a part 2 where they're now helping them strategize around design support as they fill the space and thinking through, like, wall wrapping, images on the wall, signage. And that's something that they would have either done themselves, and you don't know how that might turn out, right, if you're not skilled in that work, or could have cost them tens of thousands of dollars in fees to a design firm. And for us, it's a great opportunity for our team to get out of the constant soup and snacks mindset of design and do something creative, and even give some opportunities to some of the junior designers where they might not necessarily get that opportunity within the corporate setting. We're also doing things like iPhone photography workshops for nonprofit staff with our photography and video team. Our HR team did a 2-part webinar series on tactical work tips for how to recruit staff. So we're thinking through who are the knowledge experts, what are the needs in the community, and how can we bridge that to provide something really beneficial for the nonprofits. And then this year we've started expanding that to small businesses, knowing that another way to help drive the economy within Camden is by supporting the small businesses and entrepreneurs. And so thinking through how does that look? And so next week we actually have one of our brand and PR teams is going to teach food photography classes with small business restaurant owners that are participating in this pilot. They're launching catering websites. And so we came in and said, all right, if they're launching a catering website, their food needs to be photographed differently. They need to have it done in a way that's going to appeal to people. They're going to want to click in. They're going to want to purchase it. What better person to come in and teach that than folks who are selling food day to day in Campbell's. And so we're thinking through how do we partner with nonprofits who are supporting small businesses to grow beyond our current circle of partners. I see some questions in the chat and I won't answer them when I'm done speaking because I am terrible at multitasking in that way. So now we are at Scope-a-thon. Incredible program. I have looked at Taproot as a leader in pro bono and skills-based volunteering for so long. Like I read their white papers, I go on their website when I'm trying to establish a baseline for myself on a new project. They are who I turn to. And so I was really excited to work with them. We wanted to bring a large-scale skills-based volunteering event as part of our days of service. So employees volunteer year-round, but during our days of service, that's where we see critical mass of large groups of volunteers coming together. And we wanted to offer a skills-based opportunity where there was cross-functional participation. And we knew that it was just something we didn't have the bandwidth to run ourselves. We are a team of 3.5. 3 folks and then 1 person that has a dual reporting into internal communications. And we partnered with Taproot to bring Scope-a-thon. We came to them and we said, we know that you can recruit the nonprofits, you can help them figure out what the challenges are that they're going to be submitting. And we said, we don't need that. We need your expertise in making the event happen, but we know who we want to invite. We know the challenges they're facing. We have been working with them for so long that trust is there to say, hey, we're going to tap you to participate in this. It blew all my expectations out of the water. And I think for all of our volunteers as well, to me, I'm like, why Taproot? Like, I will sing their praises from the rooftops. I am very much an I can do it myself person. It's very hard for me to outsource. 4 years ago, the volunteer budget for our department was pretty much non-existent. It was like t-shirts and basic supplies. And so it's been a process growing and, making the case that volunteering is not free. And also, if we want to level up our programs, bringing in experts like Taproot is really what's going to create that wow moment. We had a lot of leaders, a lot of senior vice presidents, a lot of senior directors participate, and it was seamless for them. And that was only possible because Taproot had been involved from the get-go. From the hand matching of skill sets of our employees, including those last-minute leaders who did not want to fill out the application. And so I was sending them LinkedIn bios for them to actually identify what would be the best project for them to sit on. From doing that level of detail to the really thoughtful way they trained volunteers to ensure they were in the right frame of mind around what are the challenges that a nonprofit is facing. They're going to be very different than a corporation. And so just to put into perspective, the day before Scope-a-thon, I had just led a 300-person volunteer activity with our CEO, his entire leadership team, and the mayor of Camden. A lot of press, a lot of visibility. And the next day we went into Scope-a-thon and I was not nervous at all. My team was like, what do you need help with? It's like, nothing. We're good. I have Taproot. Taproot is my extended team. They worked with us to take what they offer, a plug and play program, and they listened to me and they helped customize it to fit the really unique relationship that we have with the city of Camden. And it was so powerful. I mean, you could see like the pro bono valuation. I think when employees saw like, oh my goodness, all of us in the room, 54 of us, saved these organizations $60,000 in consulting fees. I think that also really helped with maybe a little bit of the imposter syndrome that they were feeling of, who am I to be helping this organization? I'm like, you're a senior vice president who's been at the company for 25 years. You're absolutely the person who should be giving them advice and helping them work through this problem they're facing. So it was really amazing, and the participant feedback really spoke for itself. I mean, the biggest win for me from the participant angle was I have a ready to go listserv of people who I can tap when I get one-off requests throughout the year, people who are fierce advocates for pro bono work. They were coming up to me, and Kate actually participated as a volunteer, which was, I think, really fun for her, asking us if we could host a quarterly scope-a-thon. I was like, maybe in a couple years. Our budget is not there quite there yet. Something else that I really love that we did is we provided our volunteers with a graphic and a template to share their experience on LinkedIn after the event. Super well received. We're actually going to do that for the nonprofits next year as well. And I wish I had our comms team on site to film people sharing their feedback when the event ended. I mean, I actually had tears in my eyes, had employees saying that it was the most meaningful experience they'd ever had at the company, work or volunteer wise, that they've been feeling stuck professionally, and this helped them get their creative juices flowing again. I mean, from a value add in terms of retention and value, it paid for itself in spades. And then for our nonprofit partners, it was, I think, equally as successful. I felt really strongly that I wanted to see, like, is this meaningful beyond the feel good feelings that you have right after the event? I'm the first person to tell you I have a pile of notebooks from past conferences that are collecting dust, right? You go to that conference, you have all these great ideas, you take all these great notes, and then you come back to the real world and work gets heavy. And that notebook of notes kind of sits to the side. So while we had really great feedback with our immediate post event evaluation, I worked with Taproot to do a 6-month out evaluation as well. Focus on, like, did you actually implement the scope of work that the team put together for you when they helped you diagnose the challenge you were facing? And they did. Full transparency, not everyone, and we'll get to that, but we had some organizations saying they launched a completely new corporate volunteer program, new technology, new doc, new training, funding tiers. I mean, the 3 quotes I think that are on the screen are really powerful and give you very diverse metrics for success. Something in terms of those who did not implement and said, like, I have every intention of implementing, we just haven't got to it, was lack of resources. And so one of the things that we're considering, you know, if Scope-a-thon is what we want to continue doing year over year, we've talked about maybe we do it every other year and then we do a different program with Taproot on the off years. Is there a part 2 for Scope-a-thon? Like, what happens when it's done and some of those, like, 1 or 2 person staffed nonprofits leave and don't have the bandwidth to get out of the day-to-day? How can we support them to ensure that's implemented? Some of those nonprofits have already asked if they could come back for this year's Scope-a-thon because they have another challenge or they have a part 2. So that's been really great. Saves me the effort in recruitment. And I've just been so excited to continue working with Kyle, who I'm going to pass it over to now. She's going to share a little bit more about our work together on Scope-a-thon. But we're excited to bring Scope-a-thon back to Camden this April for our Days of Service again.
Thank you so much, Andrea. And I hope you heard, like, through the enthusiasm in Andrea's voice as she was describing what the Scope-a-thon day like it's genuine. And I think that is really the underlying theme of, like, how I would think about my lessons learned and my reflections from that day. So first thing is that community-centered design strengthens impact. As this engagement, this Scope-a-thon was really centered on building out, centering local relationships, centering the Camden community. It created an amazing sense of trust and authenticity. I could see it from the room on event day. It was clear that there was already a foundation set and that there was trust and communication in place, even if that was the first time folks were meeting face to face. There's also a great sense of strengthened connection and belonging that we saw in conjunction with the Scope-a-thon. 100% of volunteers reported feeling more connected to Campbell's following the event. That's data from our post-program surveys. And looking at survey results and the quotes you saw earlier really demonstrates that employees truly found meaning in giving back and working with their local community. And like Andrea said, this is also starting to open up new pathways of support. The Scope-a-thon is and will continue to be a really impactful way of connecting with Camden through skills-based volunteering, but there could be other potential partners, programs to explore, and we're really excited to be digging in together with Campbell's. This was an amazing event to work on and just like a really great team to work alongside with. So, as you're reflecting on the content you've heard so far today, would love for you all to put on your thinking caps and consider how you might deepen relationships with the nonprofits in your community. This can be a thought exercise just for yourself, but if you have an idea that you would like to share with others, please feel free to share it in the chat. I know sometimes writing things down publicly, for better or for worse, helps me feel accountable. So there is also that incentive. As folks are mulling over this, I know we got some great questions in the chat. So I'm going to start to go through those now, and then we'll make sure we leave a few minutes for next steps and wrapping up. So I think these are primarily for Campbell's. So Kate and Andrea, I'll start to direct these to you. How are Campbell's employees able to balance their day-to-day jobs with pro bono projects?
I will say it's definitely it's not something that we fully mastered, and I think that's just because when you're working with people, everyone is different. For us, well, there's two things. One is Campbell's really prioritizes professional development and growth for employees. It's every employee has an annual like individual development plan. I have my quarterly check-in with Kate literally right after this call. On mine, we have monthly grow time that prioritizes employee growth in whichever form you want. And then there's also a company priority around volunteer hours per employees. And really our leaders, like they walk the walk. And so volunteering, giving back is really ingrained into the company culture, and professional development is also ingrained. And that has really helped us leverage that language when going to managers and HR business partners to say, we have this opportunity. Here are the skills that folks can develop. We'd love to have folks from your team join. Having a clear scope of work is important. And that's why I said working with professionals like Taproot, or we've worked with other partners as well, whether it's a short-term project like a 4-month project or it's a 1-day commitment, is being able to outline from the get-go, here are the expectations and requirements, here's how much time, and then encouraging employees, speak with your manager about it. Here are the skills that you can learn, here's what you can develop. Kate, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, I think, a couple of things I would just add, and you kind of got at this a little bit, but it's just having also a variety of different types of time commitments, right? So I do think having, for a lot of employees, especially more junior employees, making sure we have manager buy-in. And there may be some managers who feel like, I don't know if I want my employee to commit to like a 6-month ongoing, pro bono consulting gig right now, but like, yeah, they could carve out 4 hours during days of service to do a discrete project, right? So I think having those options is really good, where some of them are going to be bigger time commitments. Some of them are going to just be like a one and done, at least way to kind of dip your toe in. So I think that's really important. I do think kind of the manager buy-in piece is also really important. And then also the kind of, which actually gets a little bit maybe to one of the next questions that we can talk about, which is like framing it in terms of developing new skills, right? And not just kind of playing into all the ones that you already have. So I think, and I know we've had a couple really cool examples of this where, somebody even like credited, like, I think it really helped me get this promotion because I got to hone this skill and develop this new area on a skills-based volunteering project, right? So like making that kind of case to managers too, of saying like, it's not only the right thing to do for the community, but it really is adding value for employees, whether that's public speaking skills or a specific skill set that they're trying to develop. So I don't know if you wanted to add more on that one, Andrea, about sort of what we've seen in terms of people working on new skill sets in addition to just existing.
I think, one of the things that we're trying to be better at is collecting that type of data for these one-off opportunities. And so we have been leveraging when we have ongoing, we use Workday for our HR technology. Workday has this capability called gigs where you could do like side work with other departments. And so we introduced community gigs. Employees, we could post the project, right? Might be like program review and evaluation with the food trust. It might be a strategic plan with another organization. Employees can express interest. We connect with the managers. We interview them. It's directly tied to their employee. What's the word I'm looking for here? Like their employee profile within the company, and it connects the functionality, connects the skills I'm looking for, the experience you're taking, and helps them with what they've already expressed within their Workday profile as skills that they have, expertise they have in areas that they're trying to grow in, which is really cool. So I would say going to your HR, IT folks and seeing like what technology already exists for you might be a great place to start. I'm also going to flow into another question that someone asked around, like, how are we measuring some of this work? A few years ago, I think three years ago now, we actually incorporated some questions into our annual employee engagement survey around the community work and volunteerism. And it's something that we're talking with our HR team to redo this year and actually get really specific around skills-based volunteering for those who have participated. What we got from that initial survey was that it was like the number one or number two for our salaried employees. And I think the number three most important for our hourly employees, following like pay and benefits. And so we know we have robust data plugging into HR's engagement survey that shows this is a value add for employees. It also helps that it has been built into our company's values. When there are new priorities being developed for the company, whether it's goals for the business goals for the year or public goals that are usually in 5-year sets, Kate is at the table having these conversations. And so it's not just a nice to have. We can go drill back and say, well, this actually funnels directly into a business priority, and it funnels into employee development, and it funnels into our employee value proposition. And here's the data that shows employees are saying this matters to them. And then it becomes something you can't argue. So hope that's helpful.
Yeah, I would just add on that point. I mean, the other thing I think that we've also taken advantage of sometimes in the absence of always having, the question in our employee engagement survey is, this has been measured by a lot of companies and a lot of organizations. So it's a good external data set to point to as well. There was a point, actually, I remember where one of our membership organizations offered to do like a detailed study to correlate kind of all of our data, HR data, like to correlate retention with volunteer activity and things like that. And ultimately, I have to say, like, we didn't choose to spend our money that way because there is such a robust database already of this. And so I felt like, again, I think that's important if you feel like you need that in your organization to kind of have the specific company specific data for sure. But I think the anecdotal evidence is really strong, and the data from, Deloitte and others who've measured this in aggregate is really strong. Now, it's hard to prove, causality versus correlation, but there is just such a strong correlation. And again, the anecdotal data, when you talk to employees about what drives their engagement and their retention and their purpose. So that's something that we could also potentially share after the webinar. And I'm sure Taproot has some too, sort of the data on the business case high level. And then again, there are, between your own engagement surveys and other external organizations who will come in and do those kind of studies for you if you want to get the data for your specific company.
That's really where we started with the skills-based volunteering, is looking at some of the white papers that Taproot has produced with other companies, helped us see what was working and what we might pilot and apply at Campbell's.
Thank you both for those responses. I think you've touched on some of the other questions. There's a question related about how you track the impact on the nonprofits for who are the recipients of the skills-based volunteering work.
So right now, well, I would say specific to pro bono, right now we are simply measuring using the Taproot's pro bono valuation. We do for things like Scopeathon, I mentioned we do like the post-event survey and then the 6-month out survey that has helped. We're not doing much more than that right now. And I think it works. Our company goal is around dollars, like the measurement is dollars saved through pro bono and skills-based. And so that's, I would say when you're looking at what you're tracking is like, do you actually need to report on that, or are you just curious about it? So for us, saying the goal is $1 million in skills-based and pro bono support, then the only thing we really need to track is the valuation numbers of hours. But of course, we'll ask a couple more questions, but it's more from like, is this meaningful? Was this a value add? I think something that we are very conscious of is that we want to make sure that if we are asking our nonprofit partners to give their time, that it's something meaningful for them. We don't really tie like expected participation to grants or financial partnerships. If anything, this pro bono work has been a way to really widen our pool of support beyond organizations who don't qualify for our grants because they don't fall within one of our funding areas.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, I mean, as Andrea said, the impact measurement for us that we've committed to is around the kind of dollar saved. But then I think the other really important piece is not so much for like just impact measurement, but just like, are these programs effective, right? Is getting that feedback from the nonprofit partners so that we can hone the approach and, alter what we're doing and, collecting feedback surveys or ratings at the end of, we've done like some different seminars where like our communications team will do a whole session for nonprofit leaders on, communicating for impact, for example. Like we just want to make sure we're gathering feedback and not just assuming what we're doing is helpful and good, right? So I think there's also that feedback just for program improvement's sake. That's really important.
Great. And I'm seeing one more question. There's a question around how are nonprofits able to get on the list of being possible recipient of skills-based volunteering. So maybe Andrea or Kate, you can talk about it from the Campbell's perspective, and then I'll be talking about that more broadly of how organizations can get pro bono support.
Yeah, so I think, for this program specifically, we did, because we were doing this program in Camden with a lot of partners that we've worked with for years, we kind of just did like a pretty broad outreach to partners that we know. But I think then along, correct me if I'm wrong or add to this, Andrea, right? But then as we did more of these programs, then we heard from, then we wound up hearing from others who wound up being interested, right? And kind of hear through the grapevine. So for us, it's been a lot of kind of based on the relationships that we have. We've actually thought about now, because we've had some local local businesses also express interest. So we're like, oh, maybe we want to think about this also from like a small business support perspective. So we're very open to kind of adding. But I think for last year, especially being kind of like our first year, it's like we went with, okay, who are the organizations that we've worked with for many years? This is a new way we can try to support them. And then from there, really be able to grow. And I think for us, it would just look a little bit different in each community. But what would you add to that, Andrea?
I would just say different programs are a better fit for different organizations. And when I think about something like Scope-a-thon, there's Taproot provides the opportunity for hand holding for the nonprofits who maybe don't have the staffing and the resources, but there's still a level of buttoned up that needs to be had. There's materials they need to be able to provide so that the team can really come together, put their best foot forward. And so when I think about just employees like getting on the list or learning about opportunities, whether it's with us or with any other organization, it's knowing like, what is it that you want to engage with? So you might not need Scope-a-thon, or you might not be ready for a Scope-a-thon, but maybe you start by saying, I work with students in this program, and I'd love to bring them for a career exploration visit and a career panel. Or maybe it's a one-on-one consulting session, right? It's a 2-hour meeting with a marketing team where they kind of look through your newsletter and they give you feedback on all their recommendations on updating and it's a one and done that you're walking away. So again, working to figure out what do you actually need, I think is important, because it's easy to just raise your hand and be like, I'm a yes girl, so I understand. But saying like, we want to participate in that. It's like, you might want to, you might be excited about the opportunity, but like, is this actually the right fit for you? And so talking through that with organizations, I think is important. But if you support Camden, or if you're in the Philadelphia area and you're listening in, by all means, reach out and we can have a conversation.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for the great questions, and Andrea and Kate for your really thoughtful responses. I'm keeping an eye on time, so I'm going to move us to the next section. But if questions come up, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and a member from the Taproot team will facilitate getting an answer for you. So, thinking about where do we go from here? If you are a participant who's part of a company that's interested in maybe exploring pro bono or skills-based volunteering, we encourage you to take some time to reflect on why you want to engage in this work, perhaps what motivates employees to participate, and the type of impact you would like to have. And we would love to partner with you to unpack that a little bit more and design work that would be really impactful for your organization. There is a hyperlinked email address in this slide, which you will all be receiving after this presentation, and we would love to be able to connect and talk through skills-based volunteering more with you. If you're a volunteer, I saw someone earlier in the chat saying, I'm a little bit younger, I'm from another country, and I'm really interested in volunteering. Well, we have a platform for you. As I mentioned, Taproot Plus is available for volunteers. You can look for different projects of varying lengths of time, and it's free to create an account, and your skills can be put to amazing use. As you can see here, there is some email addresses on the screen for assistance and guidance. And we also have many other webinars that go a little bit deeper into the bells and whistles and how to use Taproot Plus. And then for any nonprofits on the line today, You're also encouraged to use Taproot Plus as well to create and promote opportunities for which you need skilled volunteers. And again, should you want support, help thinking through this, the Taproot team is here to support that as well. So as we come to an end of this hour together, we want to thank you all for your time today. As I reflect on the hour, I think that Campbell's has really showed us that local engagement matters. When employees can use their skills to support organizations in their own backyard, it really deepens that sense of trust and connection. And if you're looking to create an impact, like Andrea and Kate shared, skills-based volunteering can really amplify that. Taproot is here to support you on your journey. Please reach out with any questions. And a really big thank you to my co-presenters and partners in this work, Kate and Andrea of the Campbell's Company. And thank you all for your time, your participation, and for sharing some good soup ideas. So we hope everyone else has a great rest of your Tuesday. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.